All right, welcome to the Marketing Schematic. I'm Ann Cotter from Top Floor, and with me today is Chad Spotty, co-host. Chad, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ann. How are you?
I'm doing well. So with us is Andrea Yank, our PPC team lead here at Top Floor, and we are going to be talking about Google Analytics 4, mainly what some of the key differences are in data collection, what you can do to prepare for this transition, whether you already have your GA4 account set up or not, and then just overall why Google is making this change. So full disclosure, this is the second time we are recording this. So it's kind of good and bad in a way. Hopefully there's some new things that we uncover after talking through this with Andrea a second time. But yeah, I guess that's the nature of trying a podcast for the first time. You learn what technology works the best for you. So take two. And thank you guys for joining again to talk about this.
Of course. We probably still won't have a definitive answer as to why Google is doing this, but
yeah, exactly.
We'll
there will still be questions, and there will
why
still
the
be
hell are they doing this? Part 2. That's what we'll call it.
Yep, exactly. Part 2. Take 2. All right. So Andrea, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, now that we kind of have the topic of the episode summarized, Andrea, as our guest, do you want to just give us an intro into who you are and what you do here at Top Floor?
Sure. So I've been with Top Floor for 4 years as a team lead. And prior to that, I spent 14 years in the manufacturing industry. So I'm well-versed in B2B. I also have over 10 years experience in really various digital marketing channels, PPC, SEO, email, social, analytics, all that good stuff. And then what I do for Top Floor is really drive overall strategy, new initiatives, keep everyone up on trends, and obviously new features within the platforms that we're using. So
I know a lot about a lot of things. Okay, so I guess quick overview. I think a lot of people listening probably are listening because they know about GA4 and what it is roughly. But just in your words, what is Google Analytics for anyone who has no idea what we're talking about?
Yeah, so it's the newest version of Google Analytics. So Universal Analytics was the legacy, if you will, property type, and GA4 is that new property type. Most of the metrics, some of the reporting is the same, but there's still a lot of really important details and differences to keep in mind. So I think we'll touch on a lot of that here.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I don't know if we've already touched on it yet, but when does this transition go into effect? Because that's important.
Yes. So Universal Analytics is sunsetting July 1st of this year. So as of July 1st, no new data will be collecting in the Universal Analytics properties. If you don't have GA4, you don't have your web tracking, basically. The data will still be available to view in Universal Analytics, but only for another year. So July 1st of next year, if you didn't export your data, you don't have access to it anymore. So just keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So you will never again have, after July 1st, 2024, you will never again have access to years prior to than this year, like prior to this year.
Right. Yeah. Whenever you set up.
Away.
Yeah. Unless you export it into something else like Excel or whatever you're using. You don't have access to it. It's gone.
So if I want to compare June or July 1st, 2023 to July 1st, or just say July in general, 2020, I can't. There's no comparison.
Yeah, no.
Unless you export that now, right?
Right.
Export to what?
Yeah.
Excel?
Yeah, you can export it to Excel. I mean, even with Excel, like obviously there's data limitations there, so you can't export absolutely everything. You kind of have to be choosy about what you're exporting.
Right.
Yes. So if you want your old historical universal analytics data for more than a year from today, you should export that data.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
But
like
also,
I know
think about like how much data you're really looking at. You know what I mean? Like, is it
Right.
nice to have 5 years of data? Sure. Are you looking at 5 years of data? Probably not. And at what granularity? Like, you can do all your sessions, like, you know, sessions by month or something like that. And that's probably good enough.
I mean, as a data and digital asset hoarder, it terrifies me. It absolutely terrifies me, but I get it. Yeah, you're right. I mean, year over year is typically what we look at Top Floor.
At least at a granular level. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But who's to say that someone, you know, something's not going to come up where we want to look at a trend over the last, 5 years. And a big one there is we want to look at, I mean, COVID, right? Big, huge thing that impacted a lot of companies, a lot of data for sure. And there's really, you can't look at it. Maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're trying to erase that from our minds.
Yeah, just forget it ever happened.
Just it never happened.
Well, convenient timing of it all, yes.
I think the other thing is that, like, and I know we'll talk about this, but the reporting in GA4 is so different and really isn't apples to apples with Universal Analytics anyway, that it's kind of like, even if you have that as like a reference point, like how much comparative value will it really give you, I guess.
Right. So, yeah. Maybe that was the thought process too, is might as well start clean, because the idea of trying to massage data to compare it to the old way of looking at it, or the old way Google kind of had that data, doesn't work anyways. So
yeah, all you're doing is you're gonna have to be making excuses anyway. Well, the sessions are different here because it's recorded differently. Well, if you have to explain that all every time, then you might as well not use the data, right?
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, very true. All right, Andrea, tell us why you think that Google is making this transition.
Well, in my expert opinion, so there's two real main reasons why Google says that they're doing this transition, and one of them is privacy compliancy. So obviously, Google came out and said a couple of years ago, actually, like, oh, we're going to move away from third-party cookies, and your privacy is important to us, blah, blah, blah. So this is all part of that. The GA4 features data anonymization. So basically, like, there's no personal data collected and no identifiable data, let's say. And then the other reason is a combined web and app data analytics. So this has less to do with like our B2B clients, but if you have an app as well as a website and you want to be tracking all that cross traffic together, this is the first platform you're allowed to do that in. So that's huge for some people.
Nice. Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay, so you started that by saying what Google tells us. Do you have a separate theory? or is that what you're going with?
To make my life a living hell is how I kind of feel like, you know, give me a panic attack daily for the last year. Yeah.
Just to keep you on your toes.
Exactly. No, I think it's great. It's the reporting functionality is going to be a lot better in GA4, a lot more personalization to each client, what they need, which is really good to see. And just like general updates. So like even like the channel definitions, like what's defined as, let's say, organic traffic. Like there was a lot of search engines that were coming in, like that traffic coming in was still coming in as referral. And it's like, those have been search engines for a few years now, but because Google was never able to change their channel definitions, it would come through as referral. And you just have to know like, oh, that's actually organic. So I think like that, they were able to update with this that they weren't able to just with the legacy system. So
sure.
Makes sense.
So you kind of touched on this too with the privacy stuff. So what are some of the kind of different ways that GA4 is collecting data, or how is it collecting data differently than Universal Analytics?
Yeah, so with GA4, everything is event-based. So your page views, your scrolls, everything is events instead of hit-based, which is what Universal Analytics was doing. And then basically like every session, they would be like collecting different hit types and then packaging that into your data. Now it's all events, which I think is a lot cleaner in the way that you can report it out. And then like the metrics that aren't calculated the same, specifically, I think the two biggest ones are users and sessions. So users in Universal Analytics was total users. In GA4, it's active users. So anybody that they don't see as like a bounce user, somebody that actually at least scrolled through the page or at least spent 10 seconds on it, those are considered your users. You can get to total users in GA4, but just know that that is what users was in Universal Analytics, and you have to go look for it. Sessions. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, are they the one? Or Google is the one that's determining if someone is a user or an active user, I guess is the way you said it. Like, what's the criteria for an active user?
Yeah, there's specific specs they have to meet. So either they at least spend 10 seconds, they do one conversion event, or they visit at least 2 pages.
Okay.
So any one of those makes them an active user.
That kind of goes back to what we were talking about, trying to compare, apples to oranges, is the idea of like site visits being users. Like that's not really relevant anymore. It's just people that are actually interacting with the website is like the overall bucket of things that you start looking at.
Yeah, which kind of makes sense if you really think about it. Like, do I care how many users came, but then like even if half of them didn't even spend 10 seconds on the site, is that a user on my site? I don't think so.
Especially with all the increase in, bot traffic and just junk traffic, I guess that makes sense. I get that.
Yeah, it feels like GA4 is placing more emphasis on not who is going to your website, but how they're actually engaging with it, which, like you said, makes a lot more sense. Even though it's been a headache to put it all together, I think that makes the most sense for where they're going with this.
Yeah, I can totally get behind that. I think that does make sense long term.
I think those of us who were really data focused and, data first brained were like, no, that doesn't make sense. Why would you have the same metric called the same thing, but then change how it's recorded? You know what I mean? Like, and we couldn't get over it. And then the more I've been thinking about it and the more accounts I've been using like that, I'm like, that makes total sense. Like, a user is somebody who's engaged in your site, like not somebody that's just pops in for 5 seconds and then pops out. So yeah, it's been a hard one to get over and people are still angry about it, but
yeah. Well, I feel like the whole purpose of analytics too is like with what you're doing with this data should be like, how can I improve my website? And like, who comes to your website doesn't necessarily tell you how it could be improved. It's whether they're leaving right away or whether they're not getting to the content that you want them to see or clicking the things you want them to click. I think that a greater emphasis on that is really important too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like people have been asking for more stuff like that for a long time, like show me the content that's working on my site. Show me what to do, like more of and less of. So.
Yeah. I do have a question, and it's okay if you don't know the answer to this, but since it's focusing less on user data, for things like audience setup, like a remarketing audience, can you still set, I know you can still set those up, but how is it different than from like a remarketing audience that you'd set up with Universal Analytics?
It's really the same, but like I said, you can specify like active users versus your total users. Right. So probably I wouldn't want to remarket to anybody that's been there less than 10 seconds for sure.
Right.
But then in addition to that, like even if you wanted to go one step further, like, yes, I want active users, but I want active users who spent at least this much time, or I want them to have gone to this many pages, or within 3 minutes of getting to this page if they went to this other page. Like it gets pretty granular, the type of audiences you can set up and like what actions they took on your site. So it's definitely more robust than it was.
Yeah. And it's really tracking based on the engagement over anything else, which is great.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Another question on data comparison is just, should people, I guess, expect to see, I mean, we've kind of already hinted it's not apples to apples, but where could they expect to see maybe increases or decreases? I think the first thing people will worry about is like traffic overall. Will that look any different, or can they expect kind of changes to that immediately?
Yeah. So just the way that it's being tracked, you will probably see sessions and users less than you would in Universal Analytics. Like the numbers would be less. But I think to make sure that you have it set up correctly, like you just need to look at the trends. Like, do the trends make sense? Like, you know, is your Monday through Friday higher than your Saturday through Sunday? Like, are you actually tracking correctly there? So just looking at the trends, you'll be able to see if you have that set up correctly. That's a lot of it. Yeah, the sessions and users are probably the biggest one that you'll see differences in if you're comparing Universal to GA4, which again, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I mean, in one case or in GA4, you're really only tracking, like you said, the active users. So you're narrowing that data a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. Your conversions, depending on how they're set up, but your conversions should be the same, relatively the same. Same with any events that you have set up. Audiences might be different just because of, again, that sessions and users metric that you're using. So those are the major ones.
Yeah. I know we've talked a lot in the past about bounce rate. And just kind of the difference. I guess first question is just in general, how does it compare? Like, what is the difference in bounce rate in GA4 versus Universal Analytics?
Yeah, so bounce rate was originally not in GA4, and people were upset.
Those bounce rate people.
Yeah, bounce rate people, exactly.
And always one in every group, right?
To be fair, we have it in our monthly reporting as well. So, you know, we're part of the problem. But in Universal Analytics, bounce rate was anybody who basically didn't make it to more than one page or didn't engage with whatever content that they were looking at. So if they didn't do a conversion on the page they came in on, or they didn't go to another page, so they only visited that one page, and then they left, they were considered a bounce. But if you think about it, again, going back to your engagement, how many blog pages do you see a high bounce rate on? All of them, because you're usually like posting those blogs on social media, or you have them in an email newsletter or something, and you bring that traffic in there. You're hoping they go to another page. You're hoping that they make that conversion. But if they don't, and they just, you know, consume your content on that page and then leave, that's not a bounce. They did what you asked them to do. They looked at the article, you know. So Universal Analytics in that way, that was probably a shortcoming, right? So they changed that for GA4, and now they still have bounce rate, but it's the opposite of what they say engagement rate. So they're really pushing that engagement rate instead, like looking at the positive, right? And engagement rate would be, again, anybody that spends 10 seconds or more. So if they're consuming your content, hopefully you have more than 10 seconds worth of words on there. Go to 2 or more pages, make a conversion event. Those are engaged users. And then each page has their engagement rate. Now, when they added bounce rate back in, they didn't add it in as the old way. They just made it the opposite of engagement rate. So if you're comparing your new bounce rate to your old bounce rate, it's going to be a lot less, because now it's considering people who are actually consuming the content on the page that they come in on. Yeah.
So even if you spent, 2 minutes on a blog and left right away, you are an active session, or you're an engaged user. So where that would count as a bounce rate before, now you're actually engaged, which makes a lot more sense in my mind.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
way more sites nowadays have blogs on them. And if you're not if you're not counting people who are coming in and actually reading your blogs as engaged users, then what are you doing? Like that doesn't,
Mhm.
I think it makes way more
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely shifted me from someone who didn't care for a bounce rate metric to someone who actually is like, oh, actually that's valuable
Might pay
now.
attention to it a
Oh,
little
maybe
bit.
I'll use that.
Yep, exactly.
Mhm. Yeah. Question about the engagement rate. So is it like it by default, if you are there for 10 seconds or more, you are an engaged user, or can you modify that at all?
No, you can't modify that metric at all.
Okay.
No.
Just curious if that was something
Mm-mm.
that you could, or if that was like a default setting. Cool. What reporting is kind of like new, I guess, in comparison? I know there's like predictive audiences and some other things. Are there any that you're especially excited about, or you think that our team will start using?
Talk about
Yeah.
the need to like relearn everything, at least me jumping into
Yeah.
reporting, not in it every day, but know enough to be dangerous in universal analytics, and going to GA4. It's going to take some time for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a lot
and
different.
they've luckily they've brought in what I think are like the key reports. Like they still have your acquisition and your traffic report. At first, they didn't have a landing page report which I don't understand at all how you could not have that, but they've added that in the last 6 months or whatever. So now they have landing page reports. There's also other reports that you can like turn on the back end. They already have canned. So go in your settings, go in your reports library and take a look at that if you haven't yet. The other thing though, besides reports, like yes, reports are great. You can customize them if you want, all that kind of stuff. But I think I'm more excited about the explore section. So the explorations, those are like more of your visual reporting. So they have funnels that you can set up, custom funnels. They have path explorations. So pathing, like when you can see like, okay, people that came in on this page, like what did they do? Where did they fall off? Where did they get to? It'll have like percentage of all the traffic for a specific timeline, of course. The nice thing about that, or the newest thing about that, so you could do that in Universal Analytics, but it was custom reports, and I could honestly never get one to work. So this one's way better. With the pathing report in GA4, though, you can do forwards paths, so from a landing page or an event to forward, or backwards. So if you want to see how people got to a specific conversion point or event or landing page, or not landing page, but page, you can put that as your endpoint, and it'll tell you how people got there or who dropped off on their way. So I thought that was really great. Great thing to add for that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'm excited about that one.
Me too. So I have to play more with all of those reports, but I'm really, really kind of pumped on that. You mentioned predictive audiences. So I appreciate predictive audiences. I would say that they're more e-commerce based though.
Okay.
So
sure.
Basically, yeah. So basically, in the explore section, you can also add reporting for different conversion points. So so it'll give you audiences for like most likely to convert or to purchase, I should say, or visit in the next 7 days. And then there's one for like 30 days or something like that. I'm hoping they expand that to more B2B so that it's not just purchase, but also like convert or submit a lead form or something like that. Because what it's doing is it's Google's basically putting their artificial intelligence and predictive analytics behind all of those and giving you like the best possible chance to go after those possible conversions within the next 7 days or the next 30 days. So that you're not wasting money on people that are less likely to convert. So it pretty much is like you'd use that if you're running Google ads or some sort of ad campaign. Yeah. Definitely.
Cool. Any others that you're excited about, or is that kind of?
Yeah. So one of the other tabs that we didn't talk about yet was the advertising tab, or that section.
Oh yeah.
So that's where if you're running Google Ads, definitely connect your Google Ads account. And then that's where you'll see really all the conversion paths that include your paid traffic. So that has like your model comparisons and all that kind of stuff. Mostly just so you can see how your paid traffic works with other traffic. Like maybe initially they came in from a paid channel, but then later they came in directly and then converted, or they came in the paid, then came in organic a couple different times, then they converted.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of see that and like make some decisions based off of that, or at least see that not all of your conversions are going to be what's called last click models. So if you don't see, a conversion this time from your paid search, that doesn't mean they're not coming back later and converting.
Right.
So,
so it's like weighted. Oh yeah, go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, I think you were going to ask similar to what I was going to ask, so you go ahead.
I was going to say, like, it's the conversion is like weighted. One conversion would be weighted between different channels, kind of, right? Like it's attributed to whatever channel led to that conversion, not just like, oh, the last click was an ad, so we're giving that one conversion to this ad. It'd be like maybe, I don't know, 0.5 to the ad and then 0.5 to organic or whatever.
Yeah. So if anybody's been working in Google Ads for the last year, they moved most of the modeling was moved in Google Ads to what's called data-driven attribution, where it would like actually split up conversions between different campaigns if they touched more than one campaign before coming in. Similar thing, only in analytics, and then broken up between channels. So if they came in through multiple channels, that conversion is going to be broken up between the multiple channels. So if they hit both of organic and paid before coming in, each one of those get half of a conversion. So it kind of just helps you see, it helps you put value to the channels that may not be the last touch point, which I think is pretty valuable.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think, for channels that, I think that we maybe talked about this the last time we did this recording, but like channels like social media or I guess organic social, or I think kind of gets like a short end of the stick. Like, what is it really doing? Like, what traffic is it bringing? It's not converting. Like, why are we putting so much effort into this? I think you get a fuller picture this way of how your different channels and different efforts are really working together.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. I think that my takeaway from what you said there is just getting, like Ann said, getting a full funnel view of everything that's happening across all channels, all platforms, whether it be an app or your website or however customers or potential customers are interacting with you, rather than just, I'm assuming Universal Analytics, was primarily created in a desktop world, and then they kind of modified from there. So
yep,
that's cool.
Yeah, I think
go ahead.
I think the one thing that you can probably take away from that type of report is think about like your funnel and who's hitting what channel first and what kind of messaging that would be versus maybe they're coming through paid later, and maybe that is a completely different type of messaging and you're asking for the conversion at that point. Whereas, maybe in this other channel, you're just not asking for the conversion, you're building awareness, right? So I think that's going to get more weight on that type of marketing.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like what experience they're getting depending on where they are in the funnel. Yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And for Google Ads specifically, GA4 isn't changing the way that you manage campaigns day to day or anything like that. From like you're still doing that within the Google Ads side of things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just reporting, or you're able to report that in like more seamlessly. Because like with the Universal Analytics, you could connect Google Ads to analytics. But basically the reporting looked exactly how it did in ads. So like I never even used it from that perspective. Now it's more integrated. So they give you reports that are really full picture and not just like, here's what you're doing in ads. Well, yeah, I can see that if I go on the platform. So that's the difference there.
Cool.
Awesome. Cool. So I want to wrap up by just going through how to get prepared for this transition. Before I do that, is there anything else you think needs to be noted that we haven't covered about data and reporting, data collection, that kind of stuff?
I'll probably actually touch on this when we're talking about how to get prepared, but just take inventory of what you have right now for sure. Make sure that you have everything over. That's, events, conversions, audiences, segments. Look at your reports that you use. Get all of that in GA4 as soon as you can so that you don't lose any of that when that switches over.
So this may be a dumb question, but I'm not afraid to ask the dumb questions. So if historical data is going away up into a point, is it like any data is going away? How do I say this the right way? So if I make the switch today to GA4, I'm only going to have the data from the day I made that switch moving forward, right? So if I made the switch 6 months ago, I'm ahead of the game. Like I did my homework early, but also I'm getting all of that extra historical data, right?
Yeah, so you won't have to wait for year-over-year data for another year. You'll have to wait only another 6 months, which is nice, right?
Okay, so it's not everyone is starting from the same spot, basically. If you went in and you saw GA4 coming early on, and you're like, hey, this is important, we need to do this, you might already have 3-4 months of data built up.
Yes. And most of our clients will have data as of July 1st. So they'll have year-over-year data right away.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So basically you've got 25 days you could still if you got after
at this
today.
Point, yeah.
But each day you wait, you lose another day of historical data, like, or year-over-year comparison, I should say.
Yeah. At least get it turned on so you get the traffic data. Like if you need to come back to do all this, the individual setup, like the events and conversions and segments and audiences, like do it later if you need to, but at least turn on the property.
That spigot so that all you're getting everything to come in.
Yes, exactly.
Because that's like the easiest part is just like turning it on essentially. The tricky part is like all the custom conversions and custom audiences, which like you said, you don't have to do that day one. It's going to take time to figure out how to set all that up.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, there's some, that's scary to me. There's going to be some real regret going on there. It's like shopping for flights is kind of how I look at it. Like you waited too long. Now you're just screwed. Like you might as well just buy them. Like you're a month out. They're not getting any cheaper. You better just buy those flights and just.
Yep. Totally. Too risky.
Yeah. Jeez. Okay. Crazy.
All right. So you've mentioned taking inventory of what you're tracking. It's a good time to get rid of stuff you're tracking that maybe you don't even need.
Yes. Absolutely. Don't bother.
And also take what's the one that always gets me is like
number of pages.
Number of pages. Like if a user's visited more than one page, they're a conversion.
Are they though? Or they really can't find what they're looking for? Because that's what that's
right. Exactly.
Pages. I've seen time on page before set up when people come over to us.
If they spend more than
scroll
minutes on the site, you're like, okay.
Yeah. So good time to get rid of all that.
Do that.
You can't track those things. It's just maybe it's not a conversion.
It's not the best conversion. No. Yeah. Find something.
Yeah.
Definitely export your data. I would recommend 1 to 2 years. I just don't know if you're going to need more than that. And if you do need more than that, really look at what you're exporting. Like, is it just sessions by month or users by month or, something that you can come back to and at least get like a health check on your site back then. Definitely recommend setting up Tag Manager if you didn't, because the way that we've been setting up GA4 is through Tag Manager, and I just find it's super clean. You can test everything before you go live, a lot nicer. So definitely get Tag Manager, install it that way. Data Studio is a nice to have for collecting all that reporting. So think about that. Yeah, test everything. Make sure you have time to test everything. So flip the switch now. Make sure that you're getting the data that you need. If you set up events, obviously those events need time to trigger. So make sure you have that time. Might be out of time already. And don't rely solely on the auto migration. So there's a lot of settings within like that GA4 setup menu that you're going like, oh yeah, import all my events and conversions and whatever. And it's like, sometimes it doesn't work. Just don't rely on that. Again, take your inventory, maybe set it up manually. Just make sure that everything gets over nicely, clean.
Yeah, cool. I think you answered one of my next questions, which is what tools do you need beyond the obvious? But you mentioned Tag Manager, Data Studio is a nice to have.
Make sure you connect your Google Ads and Search Console for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any other real tools that we've been using.
All right. Cool. Well, I have one final question for you, Andrea, to wrap all this up. Unless there's anything else. You went through all my bulleted list of how to get prepared without me even prompting you. So I don't have anything else to ask there.
This might not have been my first time.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder why. Okay, so this last question will be one I didn't ask the last time we recorded this, so keeping you on your toes.
Oh, whoa, okay.
So you've had a whole year to plan and prepare for this. How has your attitudes towards this change overall just changed over time since the beginning to like how you look at it today?
Yeah, it's kind of like how I mentioned on a few different things that like I was on board with everyone else where I was like, oh, like complainers, like, oh, I can't believe they don't have this, or I can't believe they changed this. And now it's like, yeah, I kind of get why they changed that. Okay, it makes sense. Like, all right, Google, like you know what you're doing. Like, so I'm kind of, my perspective has shifted. Like I'm on board now. Like I get it. But change is hard for everybody, right? So it has taken some time, but also they are coming out with updates all the time. So if you find that there's something that you're just like, I can't believe this is not in there, just wait a week and check back because it might be in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Google has listened to the reactions from their user base and added a lot of reporting that previously wasn't there.
Yeah. Shocking. Like seriously, shocking to me that they actually listened to the community, but they definitely, somebody's listening. Yeah.
Awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, I think, that's a great point. It's just, you eventually have to kind of face the music, embrace the change. Can't really do anything else about it. And I think it's a good opportunity for a fresh start because I have seen a lot of analytic accounts set up that are just mayhem. I don't know what they were doing. So this is your fresh start. Just get rid of it. Yeah, just to understate it. Yeah.
Fresh start. I love it.
Yep. Fresh start. All right. Well, thank you both for doing this podcast again. I appreciate it. I still learned new things that I didn't remember from last time. Thank you,
Andrea. So. No, it's good stuff.
No problem.
Cool. Well, thank you both so much. And I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.